Hello.
Hey.
Welcome to the Ashen Forge, episode 4, Flames of Progress. Hopefully I'm figuring out all this tech stuff, so hopefully you can hear us just fine. Thanks for joining us. Of course, I am here with Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin. And today we are going to talk about, I guess, kind of a variety of things. And I'm going to probably hand off to Diggs and Neuro about this because I've been a little busy with some other stuff this week, so I've not really paid much attention, forums and whatnot, which I'll talk about later if we have time. So, yeah, here we are. Diggs?
For sure.
Neuro?
Hey. Well, I just wanted to kind of start off asking you guys what your concept of role-playing is in MMORPGs, and if you do role play in MMORPGs, and if you do, what that entails.
Yeah, I mean, role playing. There's very much different degrees of what role playing is and can be. Everything from like diehard grog status, like you only whisper OOC comments to people, never say that in local, all sorts of like rules and protocol. It's like a LARP in a video game, essentially, with like that level, like almost like an anachronistic level of dedication. For me, that goes a little too far, and I will admit that was one of the things I actually enjoyed making fun of when I played WoW. When the server I was playing was down, because it was like the most popular server in the entire game, I would go on some RP PvP server and I would bind a whole 250 character message to macros for all of my attacks. So every time I use any special ability, it's basically a boss-like paragraph of text or whatever about how I'm going to smite them and whatever. And, that was kind of my dig at the, hardcore grogs like I was talking about. Obviously I was there to be trolly or whatever and just, screw around. But, yeah, for me, what I was going to say is, for me, the level of role-playing that I'm into and I enjoy is, you play the character in character. You don't sweat the small stuff if people are talking about like real world politics. Like, I don't know, that's probably not a subject to really want to engage in on an online game anyway. But, real world subjects and stuff, okay, that's not the worst thing in the world. But in terms of how you act and interact with your character and conduct it, like there are always things like I always have some element of role playing that I do. For example, again, going back to WoW on my shaman, my idea was, and this was probably a little bit of the radical leftist in me kind of coming out in game form, was, what, everybody, all crafting, all engineering stuff, no mission goblin. I've got everything but one recipe. And don't worry about that one. I'll do all things for 5 gold or less. I basically crashed the engineering market for Horde. I did that single-handedly, and I enjoyed doing that. And that was my character, and that's who my character was. So I didn't like role play it hardcore, but that was definitely one of the driving motivations for my character. I didn't like sit back and like write an entire story for the character and everything. That was just, a policy I kind of came to do and really enjoyed doing it and seeing the results of it. And for the entirety of vanilla on BlackRock, you were not making money as an engineer. Maybe if you're like a volume, high level grenade grind manufacturer or whatever, you're just putting those out. Okay, whatever. But that's probably much better ways to use those resources and get money anyway. So, oh well.
And then how much narrated emotive chat would you do?
I wouldn't really do so much of that, so much as comment on the narrations and the content that the NPCs are conducting and where they're trying to lead the characters of what's going on. It was more criticism of everything the entire time, not being like, oh man, this sucks, this is so dumb, it's so predictable. because a lot of it was actually well written and well executed, but more like, what the characters say and do. And then I'd be like, well, the reality of the situation, well, you said that. I know we're going to be killing through all of your dudes 3 to 5 pulls at a time. And, until we get to your boss chamber, and then we're going to grind you down to 50%. Then you go into berserk mode. They're all got to go in defense and run around mode. And then you're going to stop, and then we kill you. That's the reality of the situation. I know you said your piece, but that's what's going to happen. That's the sort of thing for me, is just kind of having fun with it, especially in very grindy things that have heavy narration. It's always coming with different lines to kind of joke about it with.
Yeah, but so you don't come up with imaginary props, and you don't do elaborate narrated emotes in the chat. You just
generally
talk
not
in character.
I appreciate when people do that. Ever since there was someone I was playing with on Diablo 1, they played in Amazon. Anytime they missed with an arrow, they'd hit their F9 or whatever with this one little line about how it's a shame to waste an arrow or whatever. It's yeah, right on. That's cool. Good on you for doing that. I can see you're really dedicated to this. But that's when it gets to the point where it increases the amount of effort that I have to put into the game. That's where it starts to maybe cut into the fun factor. Now that being said, if it's a game where narration actually, narrative and reputation actually matter, it's not the sum of all interactions with that faction equals how much they like or dislike you, but instead, individuals actually being able to like and dislike you, then there's going to be a lot more role-playing and expression going on with the characters. There hasn't been a game that's worth that yet. Maybe a Mud, but otherwise, that's kind of, I was hoping for that with EverQuest Next. I was hoping for that with Revival. I'm hoping for that with Chronicles of Illyria, and I'm hoping for that with Ashes of Creation. That's the thing I'm looking for, is give me a reason to actually play and be that character. Otherwise, I'll enjoy the game in my own way, and I'll play the character to an extent, but it's not going to dominate my interactions in the game. Maybe Eve, I would say I role played a little bit more in, just because if you're a dick, you're going to get blown up. If you're a nice guy and you can play cool, people will usually treat you a little bit better and let you go and stuff. So, there was definitely the reason to do it in that game was it actually did have a benefit. People would actually treat you differently depending on how you treat them. So to that extent, yeah, but, you couldn't even talk to the Alliance in WoW as a Horde player. So, why bother? I'm just going to wind up my biggest spell and, take you down. That's what I do. Top re-geared shaman.
I was... I guess you would best say I've experimented with role playing. I've never been a big role player. We've always had role playing servers, and I've joined them. But for me, while it's maybe at times fun, I can't myself be in an environment that requires constant, don't break from role playing. That's not something I've ever been able to do.
But what do you mean by what do you mean by role playing? So do you mean that
staying in character?
Just staying in character? Okay.
Staying in character. Not the etiquette we were talking about earlier. There's been times I've used, I guess, chat emotes. I was more used to seeing that, I guess, in EverQuest than anywhere else, just because you didn't really have a lot of other ways to express yourself there. Versus now, where we can, get rewards that are emojis and whatnot. But I've never. I've certainly played on some role playing servers. My experience with them, though, quite honestly, was that they were basically the same as the other servers that I played, just not as populated. So.
And did you run into people who were doing scenarios, making up their own? Almost like fan fiction scenarios.
Yeah. In wow, one of my guild leaders when I was raiding had an alt, I guess, on a role playing server. So I would join sometimes just to kind of hang out and see what it was like. And she was really into it. I mean, they would sit, even to the accent that was expected with the troll. I mean, they were pretty into it. So I mean, I've seen it done. I've never really. It's just not something I can get too deep into. Probably partly from just not being able to break character or how that would look, and then as Neuro pointed to it, just the amount of work that goes into having to constantly roleplay.
Yeah, so I was asking because I was in a whole huge kind of war, as I typically am, on forums.
Typical.
So I've always considered role playing just basically staying in character and reacting to the world from the character's point of view when we're talking about MMORPGs. And one of the things I like about MMORPGs is that you don't have to make up stuff like you do for tabletop. You can just actually stay in character in the world that's provided for you. And so I used to. In the last 20 years, I would hear people say, "Oh, I don't RP because I don't even know how to do that. It just seems so hard." And I'm thinking, it's not hard. You just stay in character. And I don't even know why you need a separate RP server because you can just RP anywhere. And if you start RPing with other people, they usually kind of chime in and just join along with whatever you're doing. And it's kind of easy to do. And I was telling Phantom one of the easy things I do. So if somebody brings up OOC stuff, then I just pretend like I don't know what that is. If they mention microwaves or football or alien spaceships, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never encountered what is that? I don't even know what that is. If I'm playing an alt and someone calls that alt Diggs because they know that Diggs runs that alt, then I'll be like, oh, cool, Diggs is here. I'll be like, where? I don't see Diggs. That's cool. Where is it? And then they'll go ahead and start calling my alt by the alt's name. And I said, so with Landmark, because we didn't have separate servers, there was a group of RPers who wanted to get together when Alpha started, and we loaded in and we joined up, but then they started trying to run like a scenario with, you see a silver apple dropped by your feet and people start typing in chat like they're responding to this invisible silver apple. And I'm like, what? I don't see an apple. What's going on? They're like, yeah, this is my plot and I'm going to be the GM. And, they're running this scenario of invisible events. And I'm like, that's not what I think of as RP. So I'm kind of out. You guys have fun. And I was like, I didn't even know people did that. Why would you want to do that in a game that provides you with props and mobs? And in the beginning, I guess Landmark didn't have mobs. So, in
the beginning, it didn't have much of anything.
Yeah.
But you had to craft everything too.
Yeah. But if you have the stuff, then just react to the stuff. And so I came up with a term for that, which is theater RP. Like you were putting on theater, and that's different than what I do, which is just stay in character and interact with the. So this past week in the forums, someone was asking if there's going to be separate RP servers for Ashes, and I was saying, well, what the dev said is they're not going to have. They want all the servers to have the same rule set, so there won't be a separate RP server. There's not going to be a separate PvE server versus PvP server. And they said that they might designate some space on the servers like have inns and taverns where people who like to RP like that can have a space to do that. And I was explaining that. So I was saying, I think Steven's concept of RP is just you RP anywhere. You can just stay in character and do that. You don't need a separate space. But if you want to do the theater, style RP and you don't want that to be interrupted, you can do that in a tavern or an inn. And one person was like, "You're being so negative." I was like, well, but also because I contrasted theater RP with normal RP. And then it was like, "Oh, you're saying any kind of RP except what you think is RP is abnormal." Like, no, I'm just different. And I'm trying to come up with some way to differentiate theater RP or this narrated RP that happens in chat. And a new thing, I guess, that I did not know was a big thing is trying to narrate the fights so that you start adding in between your actions, you start adding extra descriptions of what's going on, again, like as if it was tabletop. And I'm like, yeah, that's just different than what I do.
Now that's a lot of work.
Yeah, and I can imagine that if that's what you do and you want people to go along with that and you don't want that to be disrupted, maybe you do need your own space. Maybe you need a separate server where everybody's going to act like that.
No, you just need to join the same people.
Yeah. You know, if you only want to, or you mostly want to engage in that kind of role playing and other people won't go along with that, or the average person won't go along with that, then yeah, maybe you want some space where you know you can always find those type of players. But I haven't run into that a lot. And maybe that's because I don't play on RP servers.
I don't think there's a need for RP. So I like the idea of just having a server as a server. Again, going back to my own experience, you go to role-playing servers, they're just not very, for me, they've not been very populated. So you're carving off a segment of people, and I don't understand why, when you can get the same experience in just a regular old server, especially in a game like Ashes that's so built on that the numbers of players interacting. You know, I think it makes sense, and I would assume part of their thought process is we don't want to split our populations into these small segments of things, because then you're not going to have the world change we want. But you could, like you're saying, you can still role play anywhere. I don't know what would be a barrier to that. Yeah, not everyone's going to, but that's why we play with people we have the same interests with. No one's going to force you to go play with other people. And you can still do it. You say theater, you say theater RP, and the first thing that comes to mind, Flatus, who we all know, had posted a video, and I forget the name of the group that did it, but actually put on a theater show in Final Fantasy. It was actually kind of cool. And I think I get the sense that's kind of what they're talking about. You're going to have a space to do that sort of thing if you want it.
Right. But, right, like if I see a group of people who are talking about and acting out, fighting a horde of zombie undead, but I can't see the zombie undead, then my reaction is going to be like, yeah, I don't know what they're doing. That's kind of crazy.
Well, I feel like that would be like the perfect setting to continue role playing. Like, this person's crazy. They don't understand what's, you can carry that into your role playing.
Right. And that's what I do. Like, we have we have two really, there's lots of cool people in the forums, but there's two people in the forums who stay in character all the time. One is Nagish, who is undead lich and hoping to be a god in the game. And then we have, I believe, an orc who types in caps and pretty much one or two syllable words only. Nice. And very little grammar. And almost anything that they post is from that point of view of being an undead lich or being this orc. But they can do that anywhere, and it's just easy enough. It's like they don't need separate RP forums. They don't need rules for that. You either talk about what they're talking about, or basically they talk about what we're talking about, and you kind of just...
you can keep... I guess I don't get it, because you can keep role playing. It's,
right. And so I expect to, in the game, try and join Nagash's cult and promote Nagash as a god. And so we're hoping that Nagash will be able to get a skin that will make him look like an undead lich. But even if he can't, and we talk about him just being a sack of bones, even though he appears to have flesh, people can say, well, you're crazy if what you see is bones and what we see is flesh, or you're crazy if you think he's a god and he doesn't seem like a god to us. That's part of the RP to me.
And it reminds me, I think it was a commercial. I don't remember if it was actually on TV or if it was maybe an ad on YouTube or something, but it was Blizzard. And they had some of their main characters coming out of the studios with some employee, fully dressed, going to go eat, trying to figure out where they're going to go eat. And, the whole time that the employee obviously is not role playing, but they're in character the whole time. I mean, you can still do that, and it can add to humor. One, two, it can, maybe you even start pulling people in that might role play that didn't before. Maybe you actually grow your community.
Well, one of the rules, so somebody had posted a link. They're really posting links for to describe what these RP forums would be like. But one of them also, and I think it was from WoW, also entailed what the etiquette is supposed to be within the game in a virtual world. And it was saying, if you see a group of people and you're kind of worried about how to approach them, just go up and ask, is this group RP or is this open RP? And then they can tell you if it's, I was like, why? I mean, to me, you just go up and talk to the people in character. You don't have to figure out if it's some kind of isolated RP story or not. And so there seems to be more guidelines, like people who like to RP in this specific way need extra support.
Yeah. And, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, the idea that, you'll get, if you give people a good reason to RP or to at least stay in character, then they'll actually do it. And to the extent of what the gameplay for Ashes is going to be and what it's going to offer, it makes sense to establish what you do, what things your character's about, what your goals are, what you're trying to do. You don't have to write it down, but just know what you're trying to do, because if you're all spread out all over the case, you decide, okay, I'm going to go kill 10 rats for this person, I'm going to chop lumber for this person, and then I'm going to run out in the forest and pick some mushrooms, and then I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to try to get some cotton from my field or whatever, and try to spin some cotton and make some clothing. And you're going to do a little bit of everything. You're not really going to get through doing anything. You're just going to be like, not even a jack of all trades. You're just going to be kind of crappy at everything, and like, it's not going to be a very satisfying experience. So the idea that, and again, with the connections and the contacts and the relations you make, if you're just like talking to everybody, having business all over town, I don't know if anybody's really going to take you seriously. But if you keep going to, specific vendors for specific tasks, and you build up a reputation for doing one or two things proficiently, then you're actually going to be recognized as somebody who's, useful to the economy of the game and useful to the needs of other players. So at that point, even if you might want to do a little bit of everything, okay, that's fine. Get good at a couple things and then dabble in other things on the side,
Well, and it also seems to me that with Ashes, there's just going to be, there should be so much going on that, so what I think that one of the reasons that people stop talking to each other in MMORPGs is because everybody's had the same experience. I don't need to hear if I know where you started, I pretty much know what your story is. You went out and you killed these rats, and then, if you're Forsaken, then you had this experience, and oops, you thought that you were helping this one guy, but you ended up actually turning him into a Forsaken. That happened to everybody who went through the starting Forsaken. So I don't need to ask you what happened. I know what happened because I did the same thing.
Or alternatively, they just got power leveled and they skipped all of that and they have no idea of anything. They're just like, yeah, I'm just here to grind.
Right. So, but there's no new experience. I think that with Ashes, the cool thing is not only will we be establishing these relationships, but if we ask you what happened while I was offline, you don't have to say it that way, but I was away, or what happened with you today, that's going to be kind of different for each person because things are changing. We're not doing the same thing day to day. If we have a farm, our plants grew. We sold some plants to different people, or whatever we farmed. All that stuff can be different day to day. And then one day, some people came over and tried to destroy my freehold, or these people attacked my caravan, all kinds of stuff. So I think there's going to be, just even talking about the world in general, it's going to be very much more RP oriented, and we'll be actually having conversations with more people because we'll be interested to know how things changed.
And I feel like it's just the idea of a separate role-playing server is just very short-sighted because, yeah, you want to be around the same people, but the greater part of growing this world is just going to rely on so many people. And history clearly says that role players, in comparison to the overall number of people who play MMOs, are very small. So yes, you could maybe advance your story, but how far do you get if you're not able to progress the world? It'll get very boring, I would think, without that sort of change.
The types of events that I like to hold and partake in, that I think are going to be really cool and can be really cool in Ashes, is like costume parties. And where you have a city where you can literally be the mayor, or you can be a government official, and you can hold a royal ball and invite people and have them show up in their royal costumes or their backer-only dyes, bring their backer-only pets. That kind of role play can happen on every server. It doesn't have to be just only on the RP server. Like there's stories that we can tell because we do live in the city. We are building the city. We are government officials in the city, and we don't have to pretend that we're government officials. We actually will be government.
That's a big part that I don't think people are used to. That with the way the narrative will be, yes, there'll be lore, but that's sort of I guess, I forget how we put it, the blank, it's not a blank slate, it's like a canvas and we get to paint over the top of it. Mm-hmm. That itself, the way you'll be able to create the story of the world, the history of the world, will in and of itself hopefully promote what role players like to see. Once your character has actually become a part of the world, it's almost like you don't necessarily even have to role play anymore because you are the king, or you are this and that within the world. You fill that function. Mm-hmm. So I'm all for one server for everything. I guess it gets a little bit more questionable with PvP and PvE, but that's a different topic. So,
well, that one's kind of an interesting one too. But I mean, and that's also, for the sake of maintaining RP on a server, do you allow open PvP? Do you allow anybody to attack anybody, whether you have to do some sort of flagging process or not to initiate it? Because, realistically, if, this is the scenario we've talked about, is if somebody is doing something to harass, antagonize, ruin your experience, and you don't have the agency to do something about them, it ruins the experience of you and everyone around you. Or if that's their expression of RPing, and they get protected for that. That was a problem I had in PlanetSide 1. We had this this absolute piece of garbage bat stag. He would always go through a generator that we've got, or a base that we've got secured. You don't have to destroy the generator that depowers everything, so you can't like pull vehicles and weapons and other things from the facility. Even though you've got it taken over, and it still has like 5 minutes to capture and flip over into your possession. He would destroy the generators every time. So we would set up, we would kill him. We would team kill him every single time. We would hunt him in the spawn rooms. We would make sure when it was ever in that scenario, we would take him down. And a few of us got 3-day suspensions for it because we were ruining his ability to enjoy the game. It's like you have, this is Dan Binter, the former potential, I think still current CSR of Edisoi and Daybreak. He protected, he sided with the guy who was ruining the experience for everybody, and I feel like that was the biggest violation because whether he was role playing or just being a troll, everybody else's actual gameplay experience, which it's hard to not be role playing in that game. Everybody's a soldier, everybody's gruff and talking about whatever, and that's just the kind of game it is. You're almost always in character automatically just by being in the game, just by the fact that there's 3 factions and that's how it is. But that's the sort of thing that I really hope that they actually do something about and curtail is people who use RPing as an excuse to just openly attack people, or likewise people who say RPing is the reason why nobody should ever be allowed to attack them ever because I'm role playing this ethereal godlike character and I am immaterial to the weapons of my mortals and my fellow peers, etc. It's like, no, dude, no, we're gonna attack you. I'm gonna kick your ass twice now.
And I don't know about not being able to completely interact, but I guess if people were so hell-bent on at least, I guess, verbally only interacting with role players so that they don't have to break character, to me it makes much more sense rather than, let's say, okay, we're going to break off a server here and you might have 500 people that play on your server. It makes more sense to say we're going to keep you all together. We're going to have 5,000 people playing on the server, and maybe we'll let you flag, as you can flag for PvP, well, we're going to let you flag for role playing, and no one can chat with you, via the UI. Or something like that. You can only interact with other role players. Maybe not on a physical way, like you maybe can still get attacked, but just verbally you can only, you ignore everyone else. That to me would make more sense because you would still have that excluding all the external factors, but then you still have the world itself has a lot of people. I think that would be a much better compromise.
I think what I've heard from both, the RP community folk are saying that they want to try to have an unofficial designated RP server. And the PvE only, I think that's hopefully that will be an option, especially if we can figure that out through the stock exchange analytics, determine which has the least amount of PvP combat, and try and make an unofficial PvE server.
That's not going to work. The minute you do that, you're going to get somebody coming. Some guild's going to be bored, and they're going to say, "Hey, let's go over here." And
but that's about the best that's probably going to be able to happen. So, and the same could happen with the RP server too, if people wanted to grief over there. But I want to talk about, we should do a show about PvP and PvE and how PvP conflict is going to affect, is going to drive PvP. One of the things that I've been hearing or encountering in the discussions about PvP is that they're really focused on PKing. Random PKers who just want to grief. And I don't think people understand the concept of PvP conflict that Stefan Bora and Morgard came up with for EverQuest Next, and how the conflict and the rivalry between races or regions kind of drives PvP, so that it's really kind of, what I'm doing is going to negatively affect what's happening in your region, and that's what's going to be pushing the PvP combat versus PK.
Basically, you're picking sides in things that are greater than just your character that you're able to participate and take part in. So that definitely gives a really strong incentive, because one of the things they had talked about, if you know something's going on and you're in the area and you just ignore it, you'll probably get looked down upon by everybody, because you'll just, that person's a coward. They didn't side with anybody. They didn't help us. They didn't help them. They're just out for themselves, whatever. Versus if you at least take one side, then, you'll have someone that's, that you're helping out, someone that you're backing up, some goal that you're pushing forward with. And one of the things that they talked about with that game is the idea that if you, even if you die, that doesn't, they'll remember it, but they, potentially it'll have a positive consequence. The thing that I would hope, and really for any sort of game like this, is that when you're the last one standing in a battle, you're outnumbered, and you still, fight on to your last and try to do your best with it, that you're remembered for, you fought for the enemy side, and we don't like you for that, but we respect you for, at least showing that tenacity and fighting down to the last. So that's the sort of thing that I really hope to see, that, even if you're on the opposing side, you still get respect for the fact that you actually lasted, towards the end of the battle and were a significant participant.
Yep. So that we should try and remember that we want to have that as a topic. I keep forgetting to write potential topics down, but we should get into the PvP, PvE.
You've been in the chat, in the forums more than, are they actually, kind of going back to what Nero had said earlier about, I guess killing our peer, are they actually wanting to live in a world where they can't be, I guess, forced into PvP? Is that part of what they're arguing?
There is a thread, so that's the first thread that I got on right around May 6th or so, and that thread is still going.
It would seem like central to role playing would be conflict. I mean,
so they're wanting not to be forced into PvP combat. They like the PvP conflict. They just don't want to resolve it through PvP combat, especially there's consent issues, and that's always a big thing, the different views of consent. So, there's a whole thread that's been going on since at least May 6th, if not.
So if I hear you right, there's a lot of people that have bought into this game.
No, I wouldn't say a lot, but there
are some people that have bought into this game that, despite the fact that Steven and everyone have said, hey, you're going to have to put up, this is like a core of our game. This is how they're still kind of...
Yeah, so again, the core is really the PvP conflict. It's that conflict.
Yeah, but you're going to have some form of involvement. I mean, we went through that before with, if I wanted to role play as a farmer, getting my goods somewhere, I'm going to have to risk something somewhere.
But that risk could be, so there's a couple of ways to think about that, but that risk can be NPCs, because you'll be able to, so with your caravans, is you're using caravans to move bulk goods where you need them. There will be NPC attacks, but you also can hire NPC defenders. There's going to be some earthquakes and stuff like that might happen during the trip. So there's lots of that part that can be PvE. But also, if you're attacking and trying to destroy the caravan itself and the NPCs that are guarding the caravan versus player characters killing other player characters, then in one way it's PvP, but from the PvE perspective, it's players attacking a caravan, not players killing other players. So there's a way to have the PvP conflict resolved through PvE combat technically, rather than player characters killing other player characters. So that's the element. But we can get in again. That's going to be a whole show, or that can be a whole show getting to that. So.
I mean, there's another thing that, with the whole farmer being attacked, if they just come and want to take a few things, you could probably run away and then come back and take the rest to market. If they take your entire caravan, or even if they don't, you've just got, the incentive to try to do something about it. You can try to follow them back, stay a little ways back, see where their hideout is, go back, report it, and try to rally up some of the guards or something to go help you investigate it. And if they actually grant you that, then go do it, and you'll be the farmer among a few badasses that have been sent to go deal with the situation, or at least investigate it. And so then you become part of something bigger. There are these bandits that were forming up, and now for the loss of some of your goods, or perhaps your wagon itself, you just help lead into a major investigation. You'll probably get compensated. You'll probably get help out or whatever, because they were able to see that, yes, this actually did happen, and probably some amount of either finder's fee or otherwise maybe a celebration in your honor for helping to deal with these pesky bandits. So I can see there being a lot of the, when something bad happens, the ability to try to turn it into something good, especially if you're able to get away and follow somebody back who just wronged you, finding out where they're going and where they're at, what they're doing, etc. That's really powerful stuff to be able to collect on somebody.
If you really wanted to argue, you could say, you're taking away from my role-playing experience. I want to be the bandit that comes and kills you and takes your stuff. Yep. The pirate. And you're taking that experience away from me.
Oh, no. But by being a bandit or a pirate, you already assume the risk that you are not law-abiding, you are doing the opposite. Therefore, those who enforce the law are not only, interested in the idea of taking you guys down, they're sworn to it, they're bound to that duty. It is their job and task and goal in life to find and thwart you. So, that's the risk you assume by being a bandit or a pirate or some sort of swindler or whatever it may be. Corrupt politician, maybe you can get away with a lot more. Probably get away with a lot more. In fact, actually,
that's the other
people are more accepting of it nowadays.
That's going to kind of drive, push people towards PvP combat is, are they going to try and oust the government officials? Are they going to try and retaliate against the government officials? I mean, there's stuff. So it's people think that it's really going to be the corruption mechanic is going to is going to deter PKing. And I think it might deter PKing, but there's going to be a lot of legitimate reasons for people to engage in PvP combat. And it's not going to be, I'm fighting you just because I want to steal your stuff. It's going to be, I'm fighting you because you're screwing stuff up for me and I need to stop you. If you don't want to stop, then I got to kill you. Sorry.
Well, I mean, that's the way it should be. I mean, you're going to start squaring off into guilds and groups and I mean, it's if you want a real functioning, evolving world, and it's not going to be everyone gets along with each other.
Religious wars, right?
I mean, they're purposely setting up the game so that it can't be that way. If it is that way, the game's going to suck.
Well, again, there might be ways to resolve that without resorting to players' characters killing other player characters. But there's going to be but the conflict has to be there no matter what. That's the driving force. But anyway, I do want to get into the summer backer campaign, which blew up. And a lot of the people who were advocates of being positive and trying to make sure that you don't get into fights and, try to be kind and don't have toxicity, some of those people who were voices for peace were highly upset at the summer when the summer campaign started, because they feel like some of the exclusives for the Kickstarter campaign are not so exclusive, and the big one that they were upset about was the lifetime subscription. So they're in the summer campaign. That's going to cost $50 more than it did for the Kickstarter campaign.
150 more than some.
Well, it's the main price is 50, and so they were kind of saying, well, the price was exclusive, but lots of people are disheartened and disillusioned.
I have a strong opinion on this one, and I will share that opinion. More players, more content, more regular players, more regular content. Why would you, somebody who's got a lifetime subscription, who wants the game to go on into forever, you be passing your account on to your kids when you die or whatever, if that's what you're looking for, then why the hell would you want to limit other people's ability because they didn't have a payment source that worked with Kickstarter, or didn't have the finances at the time, just finally got out of the hole with their pay and they can get it? Why the hell would you not want that person that's also going to be a regular, it's also going to be a pillar of the community, to not get that subscription? It's just lunacy to me. Why would you not want your fellow players to be able to enjoy the game at the same level? They're paying more already. The
other thing is that these are people who felt like they didn't have the payment type available that they could. So it's the same people who would have paid last month.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
Kickstarter had allowed them to pay. So I don't understand why.
I have one question. Mm-hmm. Was this or was this not announced that they were going to do this before the Kickstarter ended?
Yeah,
it was. So people just need to shut up. If they didn't like it, then they shouldn't have backed it in Kickstarter. It makes no sense. They're still getting a break. Like you said, you're still getting a break in cost. I mean, people just want to complain just to complain.
I bought it because it said it was exclusive, and now I'm not going to be exclusive.
I mean, that makes no sense. I did the article thing on Kickstarter. So even on Kickstarter, it was 3,000 people. I mean, it wasn't even a whole lot of people that actually backed for lifetime. So when you're talking about you want millions of players to play this game, and there's no way they're going to double up what they did in Kickstarter. I doubt it. So I mean, you're not going to get another 3,000 people. Probably not even half of that. So let's say 4,000. Right. You get an extra 1,000 people that are getting a lifetime. How does that even affect you? It doesn't make any sense. And you want those players in, and that gives you players to keep coming back too.
Baby Cannon says, you said maintenance would be an hour and it was 70 minutes. I want free stuff.
I know.
And we encountered this with EverQuest Next too. And I think that was around, what was it around? Was it around no wipes? They said they weren't going to wipe after a certain time, and then they realized they were going to have to wipe. Or you were going to be able to keep all of your stuff, your resources or something, and then they realized, no, they're going to have to wipe those too. And people were, but you promised that we were going to get to keep it. It's like, well.
Now, what are they going to do when they put in the upgrade process? And they're going to bitch when people get to upgrade that did play, I was in Kickstarter and I'm upgrading. So you're going to yell at me?
So there were several complaints. So that was one. The other was, somebody said exactly what you just said a little bit ago. Well, I don't even see that many people going on to going into the summer campaign. So what was the point anyway? They said it was going to be, so many people wanted to do this, but I don't see so many people backing. And it's like, well, it's probably not going to be hyped as much as the Kickstarter campaign, because everybody knows what Kickstarter is. And they were doing live streams 3 times a week in order to inspire people to back. They aren't doing that anymore. So I'm not expecting.
It'd be different if they didn't announce it, that this came out of nowhere, and they gave better prices.
Yeah.
That would be an entirely different story. But the fact that they did announce this, they said, hey, we recognize there's a large group of people that can't pay, that want to be part of this, so we're going to make it available. And you're still getting a benefit of a price, whatever.
And so the next thing that was done, Steven said that if the people the Kickstarter people who did not back Braver of Worlds, which is the one with the lifetime subscription, if you upgrade to that package, you will get all of the stuff from the summer campaign if you upgrade to that, or if you upgrade to the one that's the next highest. And somebody said, oh, so now you're trying to push everybody who didn't pay that much. You're trying to push them to upgrade their package. How dare you? Everybody's going to want to do that just so that they can get these other goodies from the summer campaigns. Like, well, I was kind of thinking about doing that anyway. And now that's kind of extra incentive for me to do that. But I was on the fence about doing that anyway. I'm not sure that I want to, just because I'm not sure it's even going to launch. And I don't know if I wanted to do all that money in the same month. But now that I have an extra month to think about it,
hey, anyone
maybe I'll do
that
that.
should go ahead and if they think they're going to play this game, you should just upgrade to lifetime. I mean, we've gone over why that makes sense.
Yeah.
Within what was it, like 16 months? I forget how many months you make your money back.
Yep.
So,
but that's the other thing is, it makes kind of a lot of sense to do that anyway. So I don't know why. And who's it going to push? If I absolutely didn't want to do it, those little perks would not be enough.
There is only one instance where I was I was pissed off about a later campaign, and that was Crowfall. And that was because you could invest in Crowfall, and they offered the same packages in their investment rounds as what you could have done in Kickstarter. The difference being, if you paid that amount in this investment round, you actually got to own part of the company. Now, that made me mad. That was adding something extra that if I had known, I would not have backed in Kickstarter. I would have backed it later and then actually owned part of the company. But that is not what they're doing here. This was announced, and the prices are higher. I mean, you pay what you can and then you shut up. If you're not comfortable, you're not comfortable. You should be all for getting as many people into this game as possible, because that is what will make this game work. This is not going to be a World of Warcraft where if you have a server of 200 or 2,000, it doesn't matter because the lore and the content are all the same. That's just not how this game works. So you should be all for. I mean, they should. Quite frankly, I would think they should just leave this open forever. Go like Camelot Unchained, where you can come, or Crowfall, any of them, where you can actually come back in and keep buying in later.
Yeah, somebody said that, especially about the lifetime subscription. They were like, "Yeah, I'm all for keeping that."
Well, that one they won't, because they're going to lose money on that if they do that.
Yeah, and that's what other people said too. But
they can afford to lose a couple $1,000s on 4,000 people. Now they probably can't afford to lose that much money on hundreds of thousands of people.
But especially, I think it, even if they don't keep it open indefinitely, I think it makes sense to let those people because they were not, Intrepid Studios was not expecting so many people to say, oh, I want to pay, but I'm not able to because they don't allow this payment type. And I mean, if you live in a country where you don't live off of debit cards, some people are saying you could get a debit card, just pay for the debit card. But if you don't live so that you have funds to pay for a debit card, you have funds if it was a credit card. I mean, you're not prepared for that. So.
Well, we are starting to, I think we have just about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Or so.
Yeah. So let's take the last 5 minutes for you to talk about the work you've been doing on Discord and the forums.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll. Well, so what I've been doing this last, 2 weeks. One, I created an intro for us on our videos, which was fun. But the big thing I've been working on was I had, of course, established a website, the AshenForge.com, which was just more or less a blog site. But with that now, there's a forums, which is the ashenforums.com, to register and join, just as sort of an unofficial forums. There's other things to it. I've created a lot of news feeds, basically. So anywhere that they publish news on Ashes of Creation, it will just all funnel into this site. So you can check one spot, and there will be anything newsworthy or opinion pieces, whatever. It'll pull from all the sites. I even have it set up to pull from the developers, which I think there's only 2 people on the official forums anyways, but have it set up to pull their comments in as well, so that you don't have to go searching for them. Now, they have their own function within their website, but there's a lot of things. If people who want guilds, I can set it up so that they have their own sort of forum area that they can moderate themselves if they want. So that's kind of what I'm working on. There's a lot of other things I'll probably add over time. Streaming and things like that. We just don't have a game to stream at this point. And a calendar function to register events and stuff like that, which I actually already have functional. I just need to figure out how to get the default the default time zone from London to us. I just haven't figured that part out yet. But it's been a fun project. It's the first time I, of course, ran EQ Nexus, but I did not in any way develop the website nor the forums. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks. But it also ties directly into Discord. So there's a Discord channel. Any new posts within the forums, actually, there's a bot that will also post it into the Discord channel, so that if you like Discord more, you can kind of see what the discussions are there. And in logging in through, you can register through the website using your Discord logins, and that actually will tie the 2 accounts together. So your nickname in Discord will become your name in the forums section and some other stuff. So anyways, that's what I've been up to.
Cool.
In my off time. So, yeah. Register again. It's just the ashenforums.com. It's up and ready for people to come. Hey, if role players want their own forums, hey, I'll make a section for you. Come on. I'll let you appoint a leader, and you can moderate the forums yourself if you want to. I don't care. I'll do it. I'll do whatever. This is for the community, so it's. I'll have a light hand on everything. So, yeah.
Cool.
And actually, I'm pretty proud of this, so I'm going to see if I can figure out how to do this live, this little intro video. And I think I can just pull the file into the OBS, and it will play it, I think. I'm kind of proud of this, so I'm going to try this real quick. And if it fails, sorry, but this was a lot of fun. So let's see if I can actually get this to work. I think it's going. That is what I also spent some time doing, and surprisingly did not take a ton of time to do.
That looks nice.
Anyways, that was it. So that will be attached to. I thought about trying to work a way to actually make it into our intro to the show, but that gets too complicated. So, anyways, yeah. So that's what I've been up to for the since our last show, last 2 weeks. So, hope y'all enjoy it. So.
Yeah, y'all need. Yeah, that's really awesome. Oh, damn. I like that's cool.
Anyways, I guess,
want a little bit more.
Hey, I could actually extend that. I took it from, it's like supposed to be an intro for a TV show. So I could actually extend it. So if anybody wants something like that, let me know. Surprisingly, it only took 4 hours, 3-4 hours. Wasn't super long. Anyways, I guess we're out of time. So thank you everyone for joining us. We will be back in 2 weeks, and we will hopefully know the topic before that, although I think Diggs has a pretty good idea. PvP.
Yeah.
And, check out the website. if you have time, and register and start getting things going, spreading the word. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah. See y'all later. Have a good one.
See you guys.